Assalamu alaikum, good morning. It's a privilege to be invited to this successful summit to share my experience and our experience with the professionals here and the experts from the industry and to learn more and update our information from our dear guest speakers and decision makers and the health authorities in our region. To start with, please allow me to welcome our first guest speaker, who is Dr. Shatha Al-Quraan. Dr. Shatha is holding the position of Head of Medical Device Registration Department in the Jordanian Food and Drug Administration. Dr. Shatha is also a co-chair of Medical Device Technical Committee and a former Head of Scientific Advice Section at the SFDA. Please welcome with me Dr. Shatha.
صباح الخير جميعاً. Good morning everybody. We are happy to be here today in ACRAS second edition, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here today to share and gain new experience and learn knowledge from different regulatory authority to achieve the final conclusion or the final recommendation, which is get a harmonized regulation for medical device registration in the region in order to ease the access of this product to the market. In my session, I will give an overview of medical device regulation in Jordan. In the beginning, Dr. Nizar Mhedat, Professor Nizar, introduced GFDA. It was established in 2003, and its regulatory system is supported by legislation and regulation. GFDA achieved a significant success on its role as a regulatory agency by implementing and setting a clear regulation that is harmonized with worldwide regulation in order to ensure food safety, drug and medical device safety and efficacy. For medical device regulation, we have Medical Device Directorate that was established as a separated directorate in 2012 after its task in registration, importation, exportation for medical device and cosmetic product has been expanded. It was separated from registration department to be a separated directorate. Before we starting with medical device regulation, maybe يعني السؤال المطروح يعني عند بعض الناس, what is the relation between aesthetic cosmetics and medical device? Why we are talking about medical device regulation? I look for definition, international definition for aesthetic product. According to US FDA, aesthetic cosmetics is a product that improve appearance. And according to EU medical device regulation, which was released recently, medical devices or aesthetic cosmetics is device that does not have without an medical purpose, which is different from the definition of medical device, which is a product that have a medical purpose for diagnosis, treatment, alleviation of treatment. Although they have a different definition, but they are treated and regulated together as a medical device. For GFDA, we don't have a clear definition or direct definition for aesthetic cosmetics, but we have definition stated in our regulation for medical device as it is a product. It is the same as EU Medical Device Directive and MDR definition. It's a product, apparatus, software, have a medical intended purpose. You can see here facial 3D, dermal filler, contact lens, equipment for liposuction and laser treatment, or even if it's for aesthetic purpose, يعني hair removal purpose and Botox. All of these are example of aesthetic product that we will talk about today and tomorrow. From this product, we can see all these products as regulated in GFDA as a medical device, except for Botox. Botox is a biological product, and it is regulated as a drug, and my colleague Dr. Rand will give a session about Botox. Here a figure shows a regulatory function of GFDA toward this product. In the beginning, we have inspection on the manufacturing site for local manufacturing site. External manufacturing site, we don't do inspection for medical devices, and we are updating our regulation to include certificate for these manufacturing sites from outside Jordan. After that registration process, It could be registration, it could be importation permit, according to the product. After this product access the Jordanian market, we are doing control and post-approval changes of this product, post-marketing surveillance, side effect monitoring, and inspection on distribution side, on manufacturing side, on beauty clinic, until it reaches the end user. And you can see here we're doing advertisement control. Throughout all these steps are governed by legislation and regulation, and I would like to highlight that in GFDA we are considered as transparent authority. All these regulations are published on our website www.gfda.jo, and it is freely accessed and anyone can access this regulation. From this regulation I will talk only about registration regulation and registration update in Jordan. For medical device history of regulation, the first regulation was in 2005, and it was a general criteria for registration or importation. The second edition is 2019, and it is the currently valid and currently approved guidance. In this guidance, we determined criteria for registration and importation, criteria for lab analysis, and criteria for document for exportation and importation. As always, in GFDA, we are looking for updating our guideline to go harmonize with international guidance. Now we are working on updating our guideline. As you know, medical device sector is highly dynamic sector and it's changing. So the regulation need to be changed accordingly. The massive change in this regulation is the new European medical device regulation that was released and implemented in 2021. Okay. GFDA's registration regulation for 2019. In this regulation controls different things: medical device and medical equipment, classified from class 1 to class 3, and in GFDA we are adopting EU risk classification. As risk increase, the needed requirement or registration document for registration increase. Starting from class 1, we need a declaration of conformity. When we go for class 1 measure, which is a blood pressure measurement and a sugar monitoring device, this device does not need registration, only importation and full quality assurance certificate. For class 3, registration is required, design examination is required, full technical data is required. And also, in Medical Device Directorate, we are controlling the registration of hand sanitizer and disinfectant. And the challenging issue, or the gray area here, is the product that is a borderline product that could be classified cosmetics product or cosmetics, medical device, herbal product, medical device. Actually, this area is very challenging. As Dr. Mohammed said, regulation of registration differ from country to another. Sometimes product is classified as cosmetics in its country of origin, and according to GFDA's classification criteria, it is classified as a medical device. This will create challenges to industry, as labeling requirement for medical device differ from labeling requirement for cosmetic product, such as country of origin, expiry date, this storage condition. This information is not required for cosmetic product. Once this product is registered as cosmetics in its country of origin and intended to be registered in Jordan, you face this issue or this problem. That is the labeling requirement. According to this classification, I would like to highlight that in GFDA, we are doing a classification of the product based on a comprehensive review of a product according to its intended use, the claims, composition, and according to it, the product is classified. And we have GFDA's classification criteria, and also an 2019 guidance, Annex 7, emphasize what is the product that is classified as a medical devices. According to GFDA's medical device, including sanitizer and disinfectant Trading and Registration اللي هي بالعربي أسس إجازة وتداول المستلزمات الطبية لعام 2019 for any manufacturer لأي شركة خارج الأردن أو أي شركة داخل الأردن to place their product in market they have to track according to which هاي track according to the classification criteria الموجودة in our regulation. This product either may need registration or may not need registration importation permit. Importation permit يعني سماح باستيراد، وعند كل استيراد يتم إرفاق الوثائق اللازمة اللي هي invoices, full quality assurance or certificate according to the product risk and catalog certificate of analysis of the product. From this product does not need registration but may need analysis. And this is the second challenging issue here, that this product needs analysis at GFDA's QC lab. Or the product may need registration with or without lab analysis. For the product that needs registration, يعني شو هي الأصناف اللي بتتسجل في المؤسسة؟ كل الميديكال device that presented in a pharmaceutical dosage form, such as ovule, prefilled syringe, lubricant, topical cream, nasal drops, and also product listed in Annex 7 هي الأصناف الموجودة في الملحق 7 هلا بعرضوا عليكم في الأسس. Hand sanitizer, disinfectant, any medical equipment have a treating claim will be registered at GFDA regardless of their classification, and published literature for this claim should be provided to support this claim for registration. Class 2B and Class 3 registration has been activated recently, the last year. From this product that need registration بهاي البرودكت بتحتاج إلى تسجيل، بعض منها بيحتاج إلى تحليل لحتى يتسجل. شو الأشياء اللي بتحتاج إلى تحليل؟ هي الميديكال ديفايس اللي بتكون على أشكال صيدلانية، الماوث ووش، الماوث جارجل، الانترايوتيريان ديفايسز، الهيموستاتيك ايجنت، بون واكس، سيرجيكال سوتشر. الاناليسيز بيكون بناء يعني تو ستيبس. ذا فيرست ستيب هي التحليل ما قبل التسجيل في مختبرات المؤسسة، وهي بالعادة هي هاي الريت ليميتنج ستيب في التسجيل دائما، هي بتاخذ فترة لأنه الأردن هي البلد الوحيدة اللي تقريبا يعني مش الوحيدة، هي يعني من أوائل الدول اللي بتحلل، وهي البلد الوحيدة اللي بتعمل تحليل. فأحيانا بتضطر الشركات إنها تعمل they develop specific method of analysis for GFDA. To overcome these challenges, يعني I would like to inform about this news. In the beginning, we are doing it by the support of Professor Nizar Mhaidat. We are working on نظام التحليل which is lab analysis law، يعني رح يكون التحليل مفصول عن التسجيل، مش رح يرتبط التحليل بالتسجيل. You submit the method of analysis, the finished product specification on registration, then you are doing a primary testing. You get your registration certificate, but you cannot انك انت تعمل trading، ما بتقدر انك انت تتداول في السوق الأردني unless you pass the primary testing. So احنا كنا عملنا البارت اللي علينا كمؤسسة، قيمنا الملف، قيمنا طرق التحليل، قيمنا المواصفات، وسجلنا according للميثود of analysis اللي زودنا فيها السبلاير. بعدين if they pass or if they fail in the primary testing بس responsibility للبروفايدر. Also we are working على minimum requirement of registration، يعني المواصفة specification for analysis عم نشتغل على minimum requirement 3 or 4 critical testing تكون موجودة في المواصفة، and we will do analysis at GFDA labs only for هاي الأربع فحوصات. فبالتالي هاي كمان بتكون يعني تسهيلات، يعني لحتى إنه الهدف الأساسي إن أنا to maintain a product safe in the market، مش إنه نصعب الأمور، لأنه medical device is not a drug، هو مش دواء، ففيش يعني ما بنقدر نعامله كمعاملة الدواء، وما بنقدر إنه إحنا كمان نسهل بطريقة، يعني we have to make دائما the balance، نمنع substandard product إنه يكون موجود في الماركت and also to ensure the product الموجود is safe enough والquality تبعته is good enough. هلا from البرودكت اللي ما بتحتاج إلى تسجيل هي بس importation، عند كل استيراد بده يزودنا بالسيرتيفيكيت وبده يزودنا بالكتالوج وبالسيرتيفيكيت اوف اناليسيز، هي عبارة عن كل الكواشف المخبرية الاي في ديز واي ميديكال ديفايس مستثنى من التسجيل according للريجوليشن. هلا من هاي المواد المسموح باستيرادها في ايتمز معينة دائما يجب ان تحلل مع كل shipment for each shipment. according لإيش بتتحلل؟ للجوردانيان ستاندرد سبيسيفيكيشن، المواصفة القياسية الأردنية. هاي البرودكت هي عبارة عن الميديكال جريد كوتون، الباندج، السيرنجز، non-medicated condom, although it is a class 2B and will be registered by the end of this year, but still now non-medicated بصير له importation. الميديكيتد اللي فيه بنزوكاين لدوكاين بصير له registration and analysis. This is Annex 7. Any product contain this product this ingredient is classified as a medical device. Product that contain hyaluronic acid, salicylic acid in concentration from 2 to 18%. What is under 2 will be registered as what? لو كان salicylic acid تحت الاثنين شو بتسجل عندنا بالأردن؟ It is registered as a cosmetic product. لو أكثر من 18% بيكون مسجل as دواء. طبعاً we are considering إنه هاي كل الكونسنتريشن يعني بالupdating للجايد لاين to harmonize مع الريجن. we are considering إنه إحنا نعمل reviewing لكل الكونسنتريشن، إنه 2% because it has a keratolytic effect. بنرجع بنعمل review للكونسنتريشن it may be increase or decrease according للpublished literature الموجودة عالمياً، يعني الأبديتس العالمية. registration requirement يعني أنا هنا يعني قسمتهم لثلاث مجموعات. administrative requirement هي cover letter from the agent. هنا في نقطة مهمة دائما بنسأل عنها، أي شركة خارج الأردن they have to assign their local agent to represent them in front of GFDA. يعني أي شركة خارج الأردن بكون لها وكيل محلي في السوق الأردني بيسجل لها وبيعمل carry out the process، هو بيكون responsible in front of GFDA in case side effect صار، recall صار، أي شغلة صارت معينة. هلا الشهادة السيرتيفيكيت في الأردن بتطلع باسم الوكيل، ما بتطلع باسم الشركة الصانعة مثل الدول المجاورة. بالإضافة بدنا inner back, outer back, IFU, if the product فيه يعني animal origin TSA free, TSA BSE free certificate. ولو كان البرودكت ما فيه أشياء حيوانية بيكون في عنا declaration إنه ما فيه أمور يعني أشياء حيوانية. هلا بالنسبة للسيرتيفيكيت احنا السيرتيفيكيت يعني الوحيدة اللي بنطلبها ولا يعني رح تبطل وحيدة يعني in the future هي either it could be CE certificate full quality assurance original أو notarized copy. notarized بتكون من Chamber of Commerce أو كاتب العدل notary public. CE certificate if the product is classified as a class 3 design examination should be provided. What if the product is not registered in EU أو ما له CE certificate? You have an option. You can provide us with CFG from USA or free certificate from Japan or free certificate from country of origin and one of these reference country, and we are considering improving the umbrella of this country, UK, Norway, Australia, Switzerland or Canada. What if this product is registered as a cosmetic product? You have to provide us with free sale certificate from country of origin in addition to GMB or any other certificate that ensure that the manufacturing side has a good manufacturing practice certificate. Regarding the technical document, you have to provide, they have to provide us with composition. Composition, always the problem that we are facing, that this composition does not include active and inactive. Function should be stated, amount of each material should be stated, and it should have a number or يعني number or revision, يعني either number or date. Finished product specification from the manufacturer بيكون فيها testing and certificate of analysis, declaration عن shelf life and storage condition and stability testing. It could be accelerated or it could be a long-term stability testing. هنا I listed the requirement for labeling requirement that it is challenging always when the product is not classified as a medical device in Jordan. Any label it should have in Arabic or English الأوتر أو الإنر باك يعني يا لغة عربية أو إنجليزية. يعني لسه مش عاملين إنه هو إجبار تكون بالعربي. البرودكت نيم, الأكتيف ingredient, اللوت نمبر, الإكسبيري date, storage condition, and if the product have CE mark with a notified body that matching a CE certificate that was submitted مع registration file. Always they have deficiencies in this. They provide us with CE with notified body number, and the MOCAB leaflet have a different notified body number. The idea here that إنه مش إنه وجود CE مع notified body إنه هو يعني notified body number, to make sure that this is the MOCAB or this is the product that is certified by the notified body, and we can allow this product to enter the Jordanian market according to this certification. Is there a special requirement for dermal filler? As we're talking about aesthetic cosmetics, dermal filler is one of the medical devices. In the beginning, medical filler, they have an active ingredient, hyaluronic acid or another agent. LSA test should be specified in the finished product specification, should be tested in the GFDA's lab before registration and 3-batch after importation, and the stability testing including LSA test. This is the registration pathway. How your registration يعني happen after submission the file. شو اللي بصير بعد ما يتقدم الملف? They are submitting the file at Medical Device Directorate and at QC lab testing. The product that need analysis, method of analysis, the finished product specification is evaluated by GFDA's QC lab. After that, technical after لما تطلع النتيجة after 45 days of past lab test result, it is provided to evaluation by technical committee. بعد evaluation by technical committee بيروح بالتو track, either registration or rejection. Rejection cases is very rare. Most of the يعني cause of rejection is in fail in the lab testing 2 times. يعني برسب بالتحليل مرتين بعدها بصير له rejection. After that بصير في عنا life cycle management. If the product rejected بالقوانين وبالأسس بتقدروا يعني there is a يعني appeal, يعني بيقدروا هم يعترضوا خلال 30 يوم من تاريخ الاعتراض الرفض. For life cycle management, any change of the product after registration, they have to submit a document, and changes should be approved before placing in the Jordanian market. Medical device pricing. Here I would like to highlight about medical device pricing لأنه احنا من الدول القليلة اللي بتسعر في المنطقة. التسعير بيكون بناء على urgent need أو national need for pricing. We do pricing for interarticular injection, for cardiac catheter, eye lubricant, and we are working على cochlear implant and hemodialysis solution and dialysis accessories pricing. For updates in Jordan, I will go يعني fast through it. We activate Class 2B and Class 3 registration. We activate renewal registration. Free medical sample was regulated. And the grouping and bundling system was activated. They can register their product either by system or family. Challenges. As other regulatory authority, the challenges that we are faced is a transition from MDD to MDR and limited number of notified body that is assigned by EU Commission. We face a problem how to deal with the expired certificate, as there is no published guidance or regulation, so the guesswork will increase. Also, limitation is a human as any other regulatory authority. We have difficulties or challenging for resources, human resources, and financial resources. Also, there is a challenging the presence of more than one distributor. It's challenging filtration of the process. And finally, I would like to show this regulatory balance, how it's challenging to any regulatory authority to maintain the product quality as well as to maintain its availability in the market and available in the affordable prices that patients can access this product. And thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shatha, for the comprehensive, informative presentation and for sharing some good news, which we will discuss it later in the panel discussion. Our next honorable guest, Mr. Faisal Alshehri. So Faisal is the head of Medical Device Regulations and Standards Section at Saudi Food and Drug Authority. Mr. Faisal is holding a master's degree in analytical and pharmaceutical science. He's a medical device regulatory expert with 15 years of experience, both in clinical and government. Mr. Faisal is also the focal contact point and member in around 18 technical committees in standardization organizations such as the WHO and the GSO. Please welcome with me Mr. Faisal Alshehri.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for this great chance to be here today to share some of the experiences and regulatory updates in Saudi Arabia. In this presentation, we're going to go through the medical device law in Saudi Arabia, some updates in the new medical device law being published 2 years ago. Then we will go briefly through the regulatory scheme and how the medical devices are regulated and registered in Saudi Arabia. After that, we will go to aesthetic devices and how they are related to the medical device law. In brief, we are talking about the medical device law. The medical device law was approved by the royal decree by the King of Saudi Arabia in 1442. It is composed of three main parts: regulatory part, supervisory part, and a legislative part, which all ended up in the medical device law. The medical device law controls the life cycle of the medical device to assure three main categories: the safety of the medical device, efficiency that makes sure that it performs its intended purpose. So what's new in the new medical device law that's been published 2 years ago? The new and the major update was the enforcement of quality management system based on the international standard ISO 13485 2016. Before, in the previous law, it was mandatory on Class A and B manufacturers to have a certificate in quality management system. Recently, the updates where it's required from all related establishments dealing with medical devices, whether they were manufacturers, importers, or distributors, or even an authorized representative. The level of the application of how to deal and what to present in the quality management system varies from either presenting a certificate from a conformity body or showing a proof of application of a quality management system, and that will be applicable only for Type C and D or authorized representatives. Other than that, we have after-sale services. For one of the categories that were not fully regulated were maintenance of medical devices, and this is a gray area where there are companies that, yes, we control the registration of the whole product, but we don't control the after-sale. Who control these facilities? What about the service? For how long they need to perform all these procedures they are using? If the client or the end user, whether it's a hospital or a clinic, have an issue with a maintenance provider, which is not the main manufacturer, how they will handle and deal and tackle all these issues. Also, before, healthcare providers were not involved in the reporting system of incident reports. It was a responsibility and the core responsibility of the manufacturer or his authorized representative presented in Saudi Arabia. But now it's mandatory on every healthcare facility or healthcare provider that they report it to the Saudi FDA through the National Center for Medical Device Reporting, in addition to the manufacturer or his authorized representative. In this way, we control that it's truly reported, all the events are reported, accounted and taken for, to make sure that it's being dealt and corrective actions are in place. Conditional reprocessing of medical devices. One of the things that were not allowed to enter the Saudi market are reused or used medical devices. Now it's conditional acceptance based on the technical documentation will be provided through the manufacturer or his authorized representative. Also, the clearance of medical devices, the process have been changed. Before that, we had to do a full technical file assessment. These days, there are categories of some products that can be cleared on the spot, and after sale, technical documentation will be reviewed. Advertising, and I think this is one of the emerging topics at the moment. Advertising is more regulated and controls being enforced, even on the social media itself, on the medical devices. Innovative medical device authorization, and this is an area where Saudi Arabia is investing a lot of its efforts and technology and expertise, that innovative medical devices to be introduced to the market in the time of need. Sometimes it will go during emergencies or crisis, and I think we all faced, God forbid, the COVID-19 crisis a few years ago, and many technologies, many emerging treatment and diagnosis methodologies being developed. They've been introduced to the market, and the way they were regulated and authorized were completely different from the regulatory scheme that we are following, but it was a need, an urgent need that we had to, so this was controlled by the medical device law. The scheme and registration in Saudi Arabia, as we mentioned, the law is the tip of the pyramid that controls all the regulatory authorities and gave all the power for the medical device regulations. Executive regulations explain the general aspects of the medical device law, which is interpreted by several requirements. At the moment, we have 12 requirements published on the SFDA website. These control the life cycle of the medical device. The requirements are met and fulfilled through either guidelines or standards, international standards, whether they were national, adopted, or international equivalent standards. To give a brief, what is a medical device? I think it's a long definition. We will not go through it, but as my colleague from FDA mentioned, yes, it's used to be therapeutic or monitoring or diagnosis or supporting, sustaining life. In general, that's a medical device. How medical devices cover aesthetic devices, that will be later on in the slides that we will come to, but it will be covered and treated in Saudi Arabia as a medical device. We don't have separate that says, no, it's not, it's a cosmetic product. If there is a medical purpose in it, or it will do a similar function, as described by the manufacturer, it will be regulated as a pure medical device, and the full technical file requirements, which will be mentioned later, will be applied on it. So, for the purpose of entering into the Saudi market, a device shall fulfill the requirements of the regulatory scheme to assure the safety and performance of that device. The regulatory scheme covers the life cycle of the device, which starts from conception and design, goes through all the manufacturing, packaging, advertising, clinical training, use, adverse events, and ending by disposal or out of service. All of these are covered by the medical device law. It can be said, in other words, on pre-market, on-market, and post-market. So, as we said, it needs to be approved to enter the market. So, what documents shall I provide as a manufacturer or authorized representative? What documents shall? Saudi Arabia is proud to announce that we are doing a full technical file assessment. In a previous stage, yes, we use it to accept certificates or registrations from leading countries such as the FDA, Health Canada, Japan. At the moment, we are doing a full technical file assessment. Yes, you can use other registration authorities or documents issued by other authorities to support the application in Saudi Arabia, but we do a full technical file assessment. The technical file assessment is built of 8 sections. The first section is device description, which will have general information. After that, we have information to be supplied by the manufacturer, specifically related to the authorized representative and the medical device itself. After that, we are talking about design and manufacturing information, going all the way to periodic safety update reports, and these are in the part of the post-market surveillance. Of course, not all the devices have to go through the full list of requirements. It depends on the class, nature, and the purpose of that specific device. The technical file information and how to deal with it, what requirements are required. Full information can be found in MDS medical device sector requirement number 1, which is entitled Requirements for Medical Device Marketing Authorization, published on the SFDA. It will show the full requirements. It covers from section number 1 all the way to section number 8. Again, as a medical device, you don't need to fulfill all the requirements, but depending on the class of your device, there are a certain set of requirements need to be fulfilled. To give simple example of in each section of the 8 sections what's required, we will go through that. We have device description. We will talk about general information about that device, the intended purpose, intended user of the device, who are the people, is it for a layperson or a professional facility, classification of the device, and any accessories attached to the device. And this is very important to know the classification before submitting an application. The application process in general, from submission till the issue of the marketing authorization, takes 35 days. Given that there is a full technical file submission and there are no missing documents or comments from the reviewers who in the technical department or the scientific evaluation team, they didn't raise any comments, so it will take 35 days. Before doing that, you should know what's the class of your device. To do that, SFDA provided a service, a platform, where any interested party, whether they're authorized representative, manufacturer, or even a researcher, can log in, create an account, submit some general information. There is a guidance for that. Submit general information about the device, IFUs, quality manuals, operational manuals, such information that will help the technical team to review and issue a decision that, yes, this device, first of all, is under the responsibility of the Saudi Food and Drug Authority. 2, it is considered as a medical device or a pharmaceutical product. This will give assistance to the applicant that I know for which direction to go. Shall I go with the technical file, or I will go with the CID requirements or the pharmaceutical regulatory requirements? The device history, what's the science behind it, the information, device market position, is it an innovative device or there is an equivalent in the market? These are all helpful information that can help in the process. If there is an equivalent in the market, it will be much easier to assess, a faster route. But if it's an innovative device, no, that will take some time, and plus it will take in the verification and validation part, which will be in the next few slides, it will take more technical information, lab results, clinical trials, a lot of information to be involved. The classification, we have 4 classes. We start from Class A all the way to Class D, where Class A is any device that doesn't have a non-measurable, non-sterile symbol, to say it that way. So these are considered as medical device Class A, all the way to Class D, where you will have it powerful, invasive devices for stents, pacemakers, and so on. All information about classification and how to do it, what are the rules and what are the classification rules, can be found in Medical Device Requirement number 1, Annex number 5, which is published on the SFDA. Plus to that, we have Medical Device Sector Guidance number 42. It will give full detailed information about the classification rules in Saudi Arabia, which is in compliance and accordance with the international practices. As we said, we have from Class A all the way to Class D. We have, we have 32 rules that will cover all these devices to decide. It's a matrix that is miss and match. You can have a survey along the process that my device, is it power, invasive, is it for professional use, layperson, so on, set of questions that will end up by a class route that will go either Class A, B, C, or D. Section number 2 is the information to be supplied by the manufacturer. Technical documentation shall include full set of labels, the packaging, and instructions of use, and any promotional material. This is very important to have this, especially in the part of the promotional material. It should be provided in the Arabic language, and this is very important if it's intended to be used by layperson. This is a very important point. Many of the applicants that submit their applications in Saudi Arabia, they miss the part. They have full technical file in English. But this device is intended to be used by me, my family members, my colleagues who reside at home. They are not professionals. They are normal people, daily normal people users. These devices need to be labeled in Arabic. Without the Arabic, it's a full, as I said, it's a full technical file. There is no missing document in it. It will be rejected. Of course, it will not be rejected directly. There will be a grace period. It will be returned with a comment. But after a certain time, there is a clock ticking. If you don't provide the information back, there will be a rejection decision happen on that application. Section 3 is design and manufacturing information. This will cover up full device description, applied parts and accessories in that device, the technical specification of that device and how it will attach together, requirements documentation, all the way to manufacturing structure of that device and how it was. In this part, we are talking also about the facility, not only the device itself. We are talking about the manufacturer facility. It should be included in this part because it's very important to know, was this device manufactured? Yes, we have a full study, full master file for the device, but the manufacturing site is not meeting the requirements of, or the technical requirements of the ISO 13485. The essential principles, and this is the backbone of the evaluation of the medical device. This is where things get very complicated and a lot of applicants miss some documents in this part. We have 32 essential principles. In easy, we can fit in 3 categories. From general requirements that are covered in sections 1 till 9, requirements for regarding design and manufacturing from section 10 to 22, and finally regarding information supplied by the manufacturer, and that's the last part in section 23. All these sections can be met, can be dealt with, and prove compliance through standards. Standards is a key player in the essential principles. Without standards, you will not be able to fulfill these requirements. Yes, you have the chance to do it. You have the choice. Feel free to do it, but it will take time, effort, and resources. Risk management. That will cover benefits of risk analysis, risk management file, according to the ISO 1497, procedures, risk management plan, risk analysis, ending with risk management report. Verification and validation, and this is the second major part in the technical file assessment. We can have it into 3 sections: the preclinical testing, the test reports, and the clinical validation. The preclinical testing covers certain areas such as engineering, laboratory, simulated use, and animal testing. The test reports shall show information regarding biocompatibility depending on the nature of the device, biocompatibility, physical, chemical, and microbiological characterizations, electrical safety and electromagnetic compatibility, software validation and verification, packaging, performance and safety, sterilization, and usability studies. The clinical validation will cover clinical investigations, or in other words, clinical trials, clinical evaluation reports, and post-market clinical follow-up. Section number 7 is post-market surveillance plan. Basically, section number 7 and section number 8 deals with the post-market activities as a part of the responsibility on the manufacturer himself. If there are incidents reports, how to report it. If there are adverse events, how to report it. If there are updates in the market, how you will deal with them. All of these sections are covered by, all these files and requirements are covered in section number 7 and 8. By the end of the registration process and after 35 days of a full technical assessment, the reviewer and the scientific team in the scientific evaluation department will issue a marketing authorization letter, which looks something like this. It will be valid for 3 years or 5 years, depending on the nature of that application. Standards, some of the standards which we are using, and it's a must to be complied with for most of the devices. We can start with the quality management system, risk management, the usability, labeling, biocompatibility, electrical safety, laser safety, and sterilization. Keep in mind that these are just examples. They are not the full list of standards you need to comply, but these are the major families of standards that any manufacturer of a medical device should keep in mind while they are preparing their technical file. Now we talked about medical devices and what is a medical device and how it's connected to aesthetic devices. As we mentioned, the medical device definition, we saw it earlier. How this definition covers aesthetic devices. We can see that it covers it by two parts. It's either in a modification or support of an anatomy of the human body. So in this way, aesthetic devices are regulated based on this definition as a medical device. To give just some example of this, and I will go this through without it, but to relate it, there are some devices, yes, it's intended, it's a cosmetic device, but intended to be used as a medical, straightforward. Manufacturers say the purpose of this is 1, 2, 3, which is a medical purpose. But some of the other devices are not medical purposes. They are used for something else, but they have functionality. They function as a medical device. And here, where the gray area comes, shall I go this way or that way? Shall I pharmaceutical or cosmetic, or I go as a medical device? Some examples, and I will not go through it in details. We have contact lenses, solid body counter modifying implants. We have dermal fillers, body sculpting equipment, and finally, we have the IBLs. All of these are examples of how some equipment are used as a medical device. A simple case study that we have, this application was rejected, and sadly we say rejected, but it didn't fulfill the requirements that we need. The device was hyaluronic acid injection. It is considered as a medical device, and there are many that have been approved and introduced to the market. In this particular case, we had the reviewers of the Saudi FDA. This was the first submission for a technical file, full technical file from the applicant. Since we shifted from, let's say, depending on the other authorities' certifications, they submitted their technical file. Sadly, their intended purpose was to have a medical purpose. The reason for rejection was lack of clinical information. And the part of the validation and clinical forms, they couldn't support and perform this because before they used to submit through other authorities related to other authorities, and they depend on their certificates. Now, in Saudi Arabia, this is very important that you have your full technical file, provide your full information, do your back studies, prepare your master file, and welcome to our registration. Last slide I will end up with is if you have any instance reports, National Medical Device Reporting Center. It's available, it's public, it's open for everyone. If there is any problems for any medical provider, home user, researcher, any interested parties, it's available for everyone to be used, and it's connected to the international reporting platforms. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I've taken over the time, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Faisal. Our next guest speaker is Dr. Noha Hariri. Dr. Noha holds the position of General Director of Administration of Medical Device Registration at the Egyptian Drug Authority. Dr. Noha holds a bachelor degree in clinical pharmacy and a master's degree in business administration and health economics. She joined Center Administration for Pharmaceutical Affairs in 2004, and in 2011 she joined the Medical Device Department. By year 2020, Dr. Noha became the General Manager for Registration Department. Please welcome with me Dr. Noha Hariri.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you this year. I'm glad I joined ACRAS for 2 times. Last year it was online, virtual, and I'm glad this year we are connected back again. After hearing the presentation of my colleagues from Jordan and from Saudi FDA, I'm really happy because we are almost aligned All our regulations are very close to each other. So I guess this is the main purpose from being in contact with each other, as it would be so easy for the manufacturers to make one file and to be easier to submit the file all over the world. First, I want to give you a quick view about my entity. It's the same procedures that we have been working for many years, but we were under the supervision of the Ministry of Health. I've been in this field for 20 years, starting from 2004. But as I said, it was a Ministry of Health. And in 2019, we were established according to the law number 151 to the year 2019. And we became a separate entity, which is the Egyptian Drug Authority, which replaced the three main entities: the National Authority of Drug Control and Research, National Authority of Research and Control of Biological Preparation, and Central Administration of Pharmaceutical Affairs. I'm here to talk about my central administration, which is the Central Administration of Medical Devices. Our main concern of medical devices is about the safety and efficacy of the medical devices. We regulate medical devices, IVDs, and how they are registered, and the importation approval of the finished device or the medical devices needed for manufacturing. We have three main departments, which are central administration, in the central administration, which are General Administration of Medical Device Registration, and General Administration of Market Authorization, and Administration of Stability. These are the main three items. Our first general administration is one responsible for registration of medical device. In Egypt, we are concerned about registration of all sterile products all over its classification, starting from class 1 sterile and ending with class 3. And medical devices that are non-sterile are also registered, starting from class 2A non-sterile, and soon class 1 non-sterile will also be registered. We are also concerned about variation for the products that already registered, and if there is any update on the registration license, this would be through the General Administration of Registration. Making sure of efficacy and safety of our products, and making sure that we are aligned with the international regulation. The second general administration is the market authorization, which is concerned about giving approval for importation and for medical devices and laboratory supplies and diagnostic reagent and production inputs. Third one is the administration of stability, that is responsible for making stability and evaluating biocompatibility studies. Our pathway starts with the registration process, then that is the pre-market approval, then the marketing, and the third one is the safety of the product, which is through the administration of vigilance and market surveillance. Three main pillars we are concerned about for registration or the full cycle of the product, which are the technical file and the manufacturer and the quality certificates. These three pillars together can hold your registration approval. About the registration of the dermal fillers according to other regulation, we are now connected to you through our platform, which is MeDevice. We launched our platform in 11 of July 2021, and now you can submit your file 24/7. No more queue lines, no more appointments. Only just to have username and password, and you can submit your file and get your product registered. All documents must be original, signed and stamped, scanned copy, colored, not copies. It's original ones. And this is the link for the MeDevice. This is the screen that you can see when you enter on our platform. You can find 11 forms, separate form for every request you need. Either you need importation approval, registration for sterile or registration of non-sterile variation. Any form you need, you will have a separate one. When you enter the first one, you will have to read some instructions. After reading them, you have to click agree, and then you are inside your application. Steps for the registration in EDA. First, you have to get your username and password from the company profile. After having it, you can submit your application on the Me device, and here is the link again. All the documents must be original. After finishing your 11 forms, you will have an acceptance number, primary acceptance number. Your file will be reviewed in the reception department within 3 days for the fast track and 5 days for the normal track until you get your primary acceptance number. After having your acceptance number, your file will be moved from the reception to the reviewing department, and you will have a notification about the completions that you have to submit in your file within 5 days for the fast track and 20 days for the normal track. This is our flow chart. It's a little bit complicated, but if you read it after I said the steps, I guess it would be okay. First, you have to submit your file, and within 3 to 5 days, you will be reviewed here in your reception. Then, if you have accept, your file will be evaluated from the evaluation department, and you will get your acceptance number. Meanwhile, you have to pass this evaluation from scientific committee, as you are dermal fillers, so you have dosage form have to be evaluated from the scientific committee. And the administration for vigilance, you have to follow up also with the vigilance department. And if there is any other requirement for analysis, you have to complete your requirements within 60 days. After completion, your file have to go to the technical committee to get your final approval. If you are not completing your file, you will have a warning email if you didn't complete your file, so your file will be rejected or suspended and you have to submit it again. The final document can be issued either from the technical committee or from our side as a central administration, according if you have any incidents or recalls, so it will be evaluated from the technical committee. Otherwise, if it's okay, you don't have any incident, it will be issued without technical committee from our side. We have a special rules about separation rules, how to register the medical device in one registration license or in separate registration license. To have two codes or two products in one registration license, they have to be common in 5 main topics, which are the brand name, GMDN, classification, intended use, manufacturer, raw material, and patient population. Otherwise, it will be separated into 2 registration licenses. Finally, you will get your registration license, which will be valid for 10 years. And in case of renewal for registration, you have to submit your file in the last year of the validity of the registration license. Here are some of the documents that you have to submit in your technical file. First, you have to pay for registration, sure. Second, the delegation of the authorized person, and as my colleague in Jordan said, you must have an applicant, Egyptian applicant in Egypt in order to be able for registration, or a scientific office. In case of importer, you have to submit the following, which are the legalization authorization, a letter issued from the legal manufacturer or the mother company, and the updated commercial card. If you have agency or distributor, you have to submit the validation, a valid distribution contract with the legal and importation license with the name of the legal manufacturer.
with a legalized relationship, of course. In case of scientific office, you have to submit the scientific office license and if you have any relationship. We are adopting the regulation of the American regulation or the European one. Also the Canadian and the Japanese are accepted. So if you are following the adopted regulation of the American one, you have to submit the CFG and ISO 30485 if you don't have GMP. And if you are from following the European, you will have to submit the free sale from reference country. As you know, there are 27 reference country. It may not be from the same country of origin, but it must be from a reference country with CE mark. And in case of class 3, you have to submit the design examination and the ISO certificate. Original signed and stamped declaration of conformity from the manufacturer, only the legal manufacturer, not from the facility or actual manufacturer, stating compliance with Article 12, and technical file for both the needle and the syringe. Raw material composition, certificate of analysis, sterilization certificate, shelf life certificate with a storage condition. Inner and outer label, IFU, packaging certificate, sample of the medical device, and in case of re-registration, you have to submit your old registration license. In case of scientific file evaluation, as in case of dermal fillers, they have to be submitted for evaluation from the scientific committee, so you have to submit the scientific file. Also, if it's not a dosage form, but it's from non-reference country, you have to submit a scientific file in order to be evaluated from the scientific committee. Medical devices have class 2B and 3 must give us a summary of marketing history at least for 3 years in order to be evaluated from the vigilance department. And if this product is new in the market, so you have to submit a commitment that you will report us with any incident or recall. IFU for the dermal filler must mention all the contraindications that are published and the warnings that are published on the website for the FDA, which are as follow. I tried to get some examples for you. Most common side effects like redness, swelling, pain, itching, tenderness, and rash, and less common like raised bumps in or under skin, draining wounds, allergic reaction, and rare risk like leakage, migration, severe allergy. These all warnings must be mentioned in the IFU. If some items of them are missing, you can make a document separated from the IFU, and we can accept it in attachment to your IFU. By this, we have completed our technical file, and it had been reviewed from all the departments concerned with the registration process. So then you can finalize your registration process through either the technical committee or the central administration, as I told you before. These are some most common problems that applicants face that may cause a delay in their registration process. We are facing some problems with the legalization. As you know, it takes a lot of time, about 2 or 3 months. Delay submission of the vigilance department, it also takes about 3 months. So the letters that we issue for the applicant to follow with the vigilance department is only valid for 6 months. You have to follow up with the vigilance department in order to fulfill their requirements and get your registration license as soon as possible. Sometimes some applicants submit sample different than that in the technical file. It may be regulated or marketed in other country with a different sample. So please be sure that the sample that is submitted to us will be the same as the technical file, because it will be in the market. So I have to see the exact sample that will be in the market. Also, we have a great problem with the reply of notified body, because sometimes we have to contact the notified body. Sometimes certificates are missing some data about the products. We have to contact or reissue a new certificate, or missing some codes for the products. About minimum labeling requirements, that your product must have a trade name, if you have a trade name, otherwise it's not mandatory, product code or model, a batch number or serial number, and any special handling for precaution. Storage condition, and if it is sterile, so you have to mention that it's sterile and mention the way of sterilization, shelf life, and UDI. Second, we have some data about the manufacturer. You have to mention the name of the legal manufacturer and its address and the country of origin. And about the product, you have to mention if the product is sterile, and if it's sterile, you have to mention the way of sterilization. Also, we have a variation administration inside, or followed by the general administration of registration, where you can make any changes regarding your registered product. It's divided into updating registration license or any update on the IFU or artwork. We have some rules which are straightforward and clear about the changes you can have in the variation department. It's like addition of codes or sizes, changing of the manufacturing site, changing of the name, keeping the same address, changing of the legal manufacturer, keeping the manufacturing site as it is, shelf life, extension, reduction or correction, changing of sterilization method, changing of the applicant, which is the Egyptian applicant name, or a changing of its address, or changing of the applicant itself. So all of these are variation rules. And there is some changes that are not considered as a variation, and you have to submit a new file for registration, which is any change in the classification and raw material, intended use, or changing both legal and actual. As you can see, any change in the raw material and classification intended use, as we said in the first few slides, that they are the main rules for separation of the file. So if you are having different intended user classification from the start, you have to separate it into two separate registration licenses. Again, if you registered it and you have a change in these items according to the separation rules, so they must be a new registration, not variation. About artwork updates, we classified it into significant and non-significant and new process. Regarding the MDR timeline, we are aligned with it, so you are not obligated to make any special changes. We are aligned to the timeline of the MDR. And in 19 August 2021, we published a letter which is on the website of Egyptian Drug Authority. You can see it, and it's in communication between us and the inspection team in order not to make delay in any importation. As we divided the changes due to MDR into three main categories: significant, non-significant, and changes concerning classification. Changes concerning changes in the IFU. If you have any change in the intended use, for example, it will be evaluated. As I said before, no change is accepted in the intended use, but if it's according to the MDR, it's like rephrasing. So this will be evaluated from the variation administration. If it's significant, so you have to submit a new registration file. And if it's not significance, it's only rephrasing, so you have to submit variation file and you get your variation approval with the same validity of the registration license, which is 10 years. Number two is the update in the intended use. If it's minor change in the intended use, like rephrasing intended use or more clarification, also you'll have to submit your file, which will be evaluated from the scientific committee, or contact the issuance agent, which is the notified body. So you have two pathways, which is easier for you, either the scientific committee or the reply from the notified body. If it's only rephrasing, so it will be a minor artwork update. and if it's a significant, it will be major artwork. So both cases will be accepted as a variation, but it depends according minor or major. And you can submit collected changes. As I know, you have once you have one change, it can affect the whole portfolio. So you can submit a collected application. Change in the design and intended purpose, even it's refused to make any change in the design and intended use before in the variation department, but according and aligning with the MDR updates, we have to discuss and make sure of these changes if it's according to the MDR and it does not affect the main design and the intended purpose for the medical device, it can be accepted as a variation case. If it's significant, you will have to submit your registration, and if not significant, so you will get your approval from variation departments. For changes in the classification, it will be evaluated also from the variation department. If it's not significant, it will be variation, and you will have to follow up with the vigilance department. If it's significant, so you will have to make a new registration process, but you will have 1 year for importation. Again, we have a new Egyptian way for technical file review that you, for those people that do not have CE mark and according to the updates of the MDR, we are now reviewing the whole technical file, as Dr. Faisal said. There is some pre-registration procedures for following up with the central administration of inspection to make to have their GMP and make pilot batch for some analysis. And here's a quick review about the administrative and information. I guess it's the same like you in Saudi FDA. And product description, manufacturing information, product specification, biological compatibility, quality assurance, information supplied by the manufacturer, software if applicable, sure it's not applicable in case of dermal fillers, product verification, and evidence of compliance, clinical evaluation, post-marketing, regulatory procedure. In Egypt, we do not price medical devices. They are freely pricing, so I guess it's a great news for you. And in case of any incidents, this is the email for our vigilance department. Feel free to contact anytime. That's all I try to collect as much as I can about the regulation in Egypt. I hope it's okay with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noha. I know it takes hours and hours to discuss the regulations in Egypt and in any country. So thank you again for the comprehensive presentation. Our last speaker for this session is Mr. Monir Azzouzi. Mr. Monir is a medical device expert specialized in quality and regulatory affairs for community 15 years of experience. He has now created Easy Medical Device, where he supports medical device companies that need help to place compliant products in the market. He educates the medical device community through his blog, podcast, and YouTube channel.
Okay.
Welcome, Mr. Monir.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So, can we see my screen? It's fine? Great. So thanks everyone, and thanks to ACRAS for the invitation to this conference. So sorry I was not able to join in Dubai, but I hope you enjoy your time there. So today I wanted to talk about reclassification of the aesthetic devices in Europe. So it's something that is actually completely new to the European Union and the regulation. And the idea is mainly to explain to you what are the rules that are defined and that will come in place, because for now it's not completely in place, and I will explain to you everything. So the first thing to look at is mainly So my name first is Monir Azzouzi. So I'm the CEO of Easy Medical Device. So as said, so I have some experience in medical devices. I work specifically on quality and regulatory affairs for medical devices. So I work for big companies like ACRAS, Bausch and Lomb, and Johnson & Johnson. And I'm trying to help also all the medical device manufacturers to be placing correctly their devices on the market in all the places of the world. And I'm performing some consulting activities. My company is also authorized representative for Europe, Switzerland, and the UK. We are also providing training, coaching. And my motto is mainly, would I give these products to a member of my family? So this is the idea of having to say yes or no. This product is compliant, and yes or no, I would like to have this product on the market. And this is mainly what I'm trying to drive each time I have the question, is this a good thing to do or not a good thing to do? So first, I wanted just to explain to you quickly the scope of EU MDR, what changed. So before we had the regulation called, or the directive called MDD, and now we have the regulation called MDR. So the MDD regulation was focused on medical devices, accessories, and medical devices and accessories. On the EU MDR, now it's focused on medical devices, accessories, and a new category of products, which is Annex 16 products. So if you hear sometime Annex 16 products, mainly this is a list of products that have no medical purpose. This is not for medical purpose in terms of not trying to treat certain disease or disability or anything that is physiological or metabolical or whatever. So it's really not medical purpose, and it's completely new. That is on scope, but when you will see some of those products, you say, it's maybe normal that it's on scope of this regulation here. So which products are we talking about? We are talking about a first category of products, which are the contact lenses or the items that are intended to be introduced into the eye, which are not here for having a better vision or not treating any kind of disability here, but it's just to color your eyes or to have some aesthetic purposes here. So now those products will become medical devices in Europe. We have the category number 2, which is products that are intended to be totally or partially introduced inside the human body. But here, as I've said to you, it has no medical purpose, only aesthetics, like the skull, if I can say, on the end. It's not like for any disease or whatever. So the idea is that here, if those products are now introduced like during a surgery, so introduced inside the body, so they have to be now regulated as medical devices also. But here we are removing just, which I don't understand why, but we are removing the piercings, the tattooing products, etc., which for me should be also included because it's the same, but they decided to exclude that. We have the category number 3, which is substances or combination of substances or items intended to be used for facial or other dermal mucous membrane filling, subcutaneous, submucous, or intradermal injection or other introduction, which is also excluding the tattooing ink that we are having and working with. So here it's like hyaluronic acid that we are using to remove the wrinkles that are used there. Category number 4, we have the equipments that are intended to be used to reduce, remove, or destroy adipose tissue, such as equipments for liposuction, lipolysis, lipoplasty. So here we have some of them that are used in surgery room, like the liposuctions, and we have others that are more used in beauty centers or other centers, the aesthetic centers that can work on that. So here we have also some rules that are changing for that. I suppose the one for liposuction were already kind of included inside some regulation for medical devices, because it was not obvious before that they were more aesthetic. But for the lipolysis, lipoplasty, all those things, so it's completely new. Now it will be included inside the regulation. Also, a category that everybody knows also, the high intensity electromagnetic radiation, like infrared, visible light, or ultraviolet. So those equipments are used, for example, to remove the hair of your skin, to resurface your skin, to have also better tanning. Also, you see here on the nail industry, nail beauty center, so you can have also this kind of things. So now it is used as, it has to be considered as medical devices. So which is a big change, as I've said, for those industries that maybe are not even aware that there is a new legislation that is coming, and they will be surprised when it will be enforced. So yeah. And the last category is the category 6, which are the equipments that are intended for brain stimulation through an electrical or magnetic electromagnetic current, which here is not, as I've said, to heal any disease or disability. It's maybe, for example, for relaxation or for some kind of meditation purpose or this kind of thing. But as I said, it's not to cure or work on any disease here. So those things are now categorized as medical devices. So clearly mentioned inside the regulation, the medical device regulation, that this is medical devices. So they have to, this is not medical devices, but they have to follow the same route as any other medical devices. So this list contains actually 6 categories, but the European Union can include a new category or increase this list. So it's not something that is fixed. So you have some time to, you have to look if there is any new category that is created in the future. So the point here with this regulation, it's why I'm saying that it's not enforced because there are some rules here. Normally, there are some rules to have this in place. So the rule, which is mentioned in the regulation, Article 1.2, it says that first, if there is no specification for certain products, we have to issue some common specifications. And second, it says that the common specifications that are created should be adopted or before the 26th of May 2021, or they shall be applying 6 months after their adoption. So mainly here it's still not adopted by itself. So we are still waiting this adoption. After the adoption, it will be 6 month timeline to get that. There was a vote. I will just talk about that, but it was not formally apparently adopted. I was still looking for this information, but still have no information about that. So why do we need common specification? So usually when we have no harmonized standard that exists, or that the standard that we have is insufficient, or that there is a kind of a public health concern, so then the European Union decided to implement, to create an implementing act, which is creating then the common specification, which is kind of a standard, how to use this or that, and what you have exactly to apply for that. So there is a common specification draft that is issued by the European Commission. This is the link, and if you want to see that. So it's a draft for the moment. As I've told you, this common specification draft there was a first vote in October 13, 2022, where there was a positive opinion for that, for the implementation of this draft. So what does this document says? So mainly in this document, we have a scope of what product are we talking about. And here we have the scope of each product. So each group of products that I just mentioned before. And inside you have also some exclusions. It says, for example, for contact lenses that have some electronic device, we have some new fancy contact lenses, which have some electronic chips inside or whatever. These are excluded, for example, from this. So they are also excluding some elements. So you have to go there and check what is mentioned and see the exclusion part. There are also some definitions that are important to understand what we are really talking about, because sometimes people can assume that, yes, my product is inside this category, but when you read the definition, you say, no, at all, it's not included. So no need for me to look at this regulation. We have also an important section, which is risk management, where it specifically tells you which risks you have to look at. So they have taken all the categories one by one and checked for this category what can be the risk, and then put that directly inside. So it means that inside your risk management documentation, you have also to include those risks directly there. And we have also information that should be placed inside your instruction for use or labeling or documentation. So I will show you an example where it specifically tells you have to write that. So it's not like giving you any choice. It says, no, you have to write this sentence with this meaning, etc., for your product. So it's also something that is imposed by this common specification. So you have also a section talking about the evaluation of risk. So how we evaluate the risk. And here, for example, on lipolysis, it says you have to look at the risk of burns to incision site and overlying tissue, overexposure, neurovascular and local tissue injury, reorganization of the dermis with reference to reticular dermis. So these are risks that you have to evaluate, you have to look at, and you have to include. Same for the control measures that you will use to maybe reduce the risks. So all the material in contact with the body shall be biocompatible. So here it's also the same for medical devices. Everything should be biocompatible, non-irritating, non-toxic. You should not, so for example, here it's also the fact that those are dangerous products. So you should not use that in a private environment, like by a layperson. So you cannot buy that as a layperson and then go home and use it directly. And the manufacturer, for example, should provide some trainings to the users. So these are providing you really some guidances, or some rules to follow for applying the regulation. We have also the contraindications that are mentioned. So in case you have a cancer or tumor, pregnancy, vascular fragility, etc., or you had a surgery less than 6 weeks ago, then you cannot use this device. So as I said, they don't give you the choice. They tell you here are the contraindications, so write them down and use them as is. Same for adverse effects. If you have some adverse effect, you have to stop the usage of the machine, of the products, etc. So as I've said, the text is really complete in terms of what to write, how to use, what risk to look at, etc. So in case you are not doing this, or you have not placed that inside your instruction for use, then looking at this common specification will help you to draft the next version of your document, so that you can align with the regulation and be then compliant, and then have no problem with the authorities. As I've told you, there are also some sentences that should be written directly on the instruction for use. For example, we have the first, which is liver or cardiovascular dysfunction, such as the transient release of glycerol or free fatty acid may be associated with increased risk. So you have to write directly those sentences there, like a warning, like a precaution, like a thing. So I place them here. I will not read them all, but just for you to really understand what we are talking about. So this is really, and here we just talk about lipolysis, but there is all for liposuction, for lipoplasty, for any of the categories I talked about. There are a full list of all the elements that you have to look at, you have to understand and to read. As I said, this was a draft. It is now adopted. There is a first vote, anticipated vote, that says positive opinion to it. I suppose it will be going to other votes. So this means that normally, soon it will be really in place, and we have really to look also at how it's working. We had at a certain point, when we are now looking more deeply inside the product. So we are looking at the products like liposuction, lipolysis, lipoplasty, and we say, for some of those equipments, maybe it's not really fitting the classification of medical devices. So let's look at that now. So first, the classification of medical devices, we have class 1, class 2A, class 2B, and class 3. Class 1 is low risk, class 3 is high risk. And to find the rules, you have to go to the Annex 8 of the EU MDR for looking at that. So when you look at these rules, it tells you specifically rule 1 is this, rule 2 is this, etc. So I just gave you some examples of what normally should be the classification of some of the products. So for example, for contact lenses, short-term corrective contact lenses should be class 2A per rule 5. So you go to the rule, it tells you it's class 2A. For long-term, it's rule 5, class 2B. For surgical ultrasound devices, for example, it's class 2B, rule 9. Suction pump for liposuction, so for example, class 2A, rule 12, etc., etc. So this is the classification for a medical device. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah, no problem. So this is mainly the aesthetic, the classification for not aesthetic products, for medical products. But when we go to non-aesthetic products, we have a problem because when you look at the classification, it says that we talk about therapeutic devices linked to a disease or disability or monitoring of a diagnosis or health condition. So this is medical conditions. And then everybody goes to Rule 13 and says all other active devices are classified as class 1. So then this is creating a problem. So what then they have done, they have issued a new common specification that is providing you a new classification for those devices. So you see all the devices that we talked about. And here it tells you now, here is clearly what is the classification of those devices. So class 2B, class 2A or 2B for some devices, and class 3, which tells you exactly what are the classification, which is really something that is was important because everybody was classifying those products as class 1. So if you were class 1, you had to go to a self-certification, then to do a quality management system and technical documentation, and then register to the UDAMED database. If you are different than class 1, you need a notified body, which is then what is creating the burden, and but the rest is exactly the same. So the notified body issue is the fact that, let's say that today we are November 8th. If we have a 6-month transition period, we have to go until the May 8th, 2023 to get a notified body, to get create your technical file, get a notified body, make the notified body review your documentation, get audited, receive your certificate, etc. This is taking normally 2 years. So this is mainly the problem here. It's like it's really 2 years project, and in 6 months, it's impossible to make that. So it's mainly the big problem that we have actually within the regulation. And if you want to see more about that, I have made a lot of videos that you can see on LinkedIn and look at the questions. So thank you, and I hope it was informative to you.
Thank you, our guest speakers, for your comprehensive presentations. A lot of information to process and digest. I'm sure our dear colleagues will have questions to ask, and I'm sure you will give us your best advice. Let me start with some questions, and I leave the floor to our colleagues to also ask their question. I'll start with Dr. Shatha. First of all, thank you for sharing some good news with regards to the shipments, and I mean the laboratory testing, and that it will be a separate process that will not delay the registration process. I know you have another good news that you shared with the industry last week in Amman, which is the Class 2B registration. Is that confirmed, or shall we wait for a confirmed circular?
There will be an official announcement. There will be within 2 to 3 weeks. We are considering accelerated the process of registration for Class 2B, and we are figuring out what is the needed requirement, what kind of document they have to provide. We are doing a plan for accelerated registration for a Class 2B medical device product that have been imported to the Jordanian market within the last 3 years. And if the product is important regularly during 3 years, we will do accelerated registration with requirement that is affordable and presented at the supplier. In addition to postponing the registration will be an official announcement. It will be published on GFDA website.
Thank you. We do appreciate the GFDA flexibility, support, and listening to the companies and trying to give them the best support and advice. Just to confirm my understanding as one of the members in the industry, for the lab analysis, so will it be, so we will have 2 pathways in parallel, the technical file review and the primary test. It's
Yes.
not that one will start and then the other.
They will go parallel
They
together.
will go in parallel.
Yes, parallel together. According to the current regulation, you should pass lab testing, then technical file assessment will be conducted according to the regulation. If you pass the test, we will do a technical file assessment. But with the new regulation or the new law, when it's published, the evaluation for technical file and analysis, method of analysis and specification, everything will go in parallel and once together. Then you will, if your product technical file, method of analysis, specification is good and it's passed the technical assessment, the registration certificate will be issued. But you cannot trade it, you cannot get the approval for trading or selling in the Jordanian market unless you pass the primary testing.
Primary testing. That's clear now. Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Faisal.
Yes.
The TFA, the Technical File Assessment. We know that this has been started or launched maybe 2 years ago, and SFDA thankfully kept pushing the timelines for companies to prepare themselves for the technical file assessment documents. Knowing that MDR is also happening in the coming year or two, how can companies fulfill or comply? Because we know that technical file assessment requirements are more or less equivalent to the MDR requirements. There are a lot of requirements, a lot of documentation in the TFA. What can companies do to fulfill these requirements, knowing that they are still at early phases with the MDR approval? How can SFDA help them with having a fast approval for new products, knowing that still it's not MDR approved, and they don't have the required quality documentation or clinical documents to fulfill the SFDA TFA requirements?
The main problem is there is a transition period from the MDD to the MDR at the moment, and that's creating a lot of gap for many companies. Saudi Arabia, the medical device law is built in collaboration with the European regulations. We are up to the state of the art with the regulations. It's compatible with around the world, let's say up to 95%. We are compatible with all the legislations and regulations. Companies that have not yet applied for MDR, they are more than welcome, since we have a full technical file assessment to apply to the Saudi market. We'll go with them hand by hand. We conduct workshops, we conduct awareness campaigns. We try to help them, and we know that there is a grace period, and we give easy technical file review. We don't go fully strict on these technical files, but we try to support as much as we can. We give 1 cycle, 2 cycles, 3 cycles, or even more if there is cooperation and justification from the applicant themselves. If they are providing, they show the intentions, yes, we are interested and we are trying, but it's just the changes are we cannot fulfill at the moment. We need time. We go case by case and we see how we can handle it. But we are in favor of companies. We are supporting them. We are not giving them hard time, I hope.
Thank you. And yes, SFDA is always understanding and supporting the companies. Yes. Dr. Noha, more or less the same topic, MDR and the phase transition phase from MDD to MDR. Especially that labeling is an important aspect at EIDA. There will be, and companies will face this scenario where they will have both MDD and MDR product in the market, if this is allowed by EIDA. So how can companies approach EIDA and explain to them their case where, yes, they might have an MDR approved product, but they're still not ready to fully commercialize only the MDR product. They still have MDD, let's say stocks or old stock or new stock. Production will continue until the cutoff date, which could be in 2024, or if it will be postponed by the notified bodies. So how can we approach EIDA and explain to them that yes, we are ready to submit an MDR file, but we can't stick to only MDR products in the market until the cutoff date, which, as I said, could be 2024, 2025, depending on case by case or the file's status?
Well, already we faced a lot of cases like this, and the company must submit an appeal mentioning this exact time for its mixed inventory, and already we had many cases that will be with this mixed inventory up until 2025 or 2024. We evaluate it case by case, and according to the case, it can be in the market with the old labeling with the MDD until they have finished all their stock. Then the new MDR labeling will be in the market. So no problem for mixed inventory.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. I'll leave the floor to our colleagues if they have any questions. Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Omar. I am Regional Sales Manager of Dubimed Medical Supplies. And thank you, doctors, for this talk this morning. And I have a few questions. I will start with Dr. Shatha from Jordan. First of all, I would like to ask you why you don't have like an option for the manufacturer to make the registration themselves, because you know sometimes they are still waiting to have a partner to make the deal with, and that will take maybe months. And starting from the contract signing, it will take also another 3 to 4 months to have the registration. So to save time, sometimes the manufacturers, like here in UAE and Saudi Arabia, they do the registration by a registration agency, and they are aware of all the regulations, and they can submit the papers and do it. So this is the first question. The second question, after registration, do you still make tests for each batch coming with the shipment? And I have also another questions for Dr. Noha.
Answer it.
Can we answer the first question first?
Regarding the agent, it is enforced by law. By law, any company, they have to assign their agent in front of GFDA, as they are they're responsible for medication safety and medical device safety, traceability, corrective action when international recalls, and they are the responsible. This agent is the responsible in front of GFDA about this product. Quality, availability, and also, sometimes we push some agents to provide the Jordanian market with this product. Our legislation and our regulation does not support a registration by external manufacturer itself in the Jordanian market.
Is it possible to have the agent only like registration company like we have in UAE and KSA?
Yes, for a medical device and cosmetic product, it could be a drugstore, institution, or company.
Okay.
And they have to have a registry at commercial registry that containing trading purpose, medical device trading purpose.
Okay.
This is the first question. For your second question, analysis. Analysis is conducted for 4 consecutive batches after registration. After that, if the product passes 3 pass results consecutive, they will get شو بسموها تداول, they can trade their product after that without lab testing.
Okay, thank you. I will have a question for Mr. Faisal and Dr. Noha. So, Mr. Faisal, thank you for your talk. I will just ask about pricing in KSA. So you have pricing for all medical device, aesthetic medical device, including the fillers and Botox, and all the companies should be following this one, because I don't think you covered this part in your presentation.
When it comes to pricing, SFDA doesn't involve in the price of a medical device. Pharmaceutical products, yes, they are priced. There is a scheme for it. But for medical devices, and that's an international practice, you cannot price the medical device since it's an evolving technology, and there are many factors integrated in the whole process. So this is purely left to the manufacturer to decide on the competition and the market evaluation they have.
Okay. So until today, there is no pricing for the dermal fillers or Botox?
No.
Or, no.
As long as they are treated as medical device, they will follow the medical device scheme.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Noha, thank you for your talk. I have one question. It's from the market, what I know about Egypt market. If someone have the registration under his name, like if a distributor, and there is another distributor will take over this agency, it will be so hard to move the name of the distributor from agent to agent. And this is something very hard, and I hear about it in Egypt. How can you deal with these situations now, and is there any plan to come over this issue in Egypt?
First, it's not hard at all. It can be a variation. It all depends about the old distributor, if he is accepting to give you his license. So it will be very easy. Only 3 papers are required: termination from the manufacturer for the old applicant, and delegation from the old applicant to the new distributor. And the new distributor must have an importation license mentioning the name of the manufacturer. So this is in the best case scenario, that the old distributor accepting to give you his license. But most of the cases, the old applicant is very jealous.
Yeah,
and
this is the problem.
Yes, he don't want to give up and give you his registration license. But you can submit for new registration, and meanwhile you can have importation approvals without staying for having your registration license. As you are concerned about the medical device is already registered and it's available in the market, so you can proceed and having your importation license without completing your registration.
Okay.
I would like to clarify with Dr. Noha a point here. Isn't the MAH or the legal manufacturer is the owner of this certificate or the registration in Egypt? I know there's a distributor, of course, in each country who's submitting on behalf of the MAH the files, and yes, he's the local MAH. But why would companies be under the stress, or agents would be under the stress to transfer the file or to transfer the certificate from one agent to another, from one distributor to another? If the principal company or the legal manufacturer authorizes the new distributor and terminates, of course, the old distributor, why should there be a reluctance from the distributor? Why are they having the power to say, no, we don't accept to give you the file or to give you the license? How can this be tackled or solved in future?
In this case, we act as a balance. We have to be supportive for the manufacturer and also for the Egyptian applicant. So the application or the registration license, when you submit it, it's finalized and it's under your name. So if you are applicant name company X, the registration license is holding your name and the manufacturer's name also, but the paper of the registration, it's yours. So I cannot be aggressive and force the applicant. You have to give your application for the other. But the flexibility that we give it to the manufacturer is that you are allowed to register it one more time, and you are allowed to import and distribute your product without staying for the completing the whole process. But I can force the old applicant to give his document to another one. It's all about a matter of being fair enough with both sides.
Sure, thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question for the Jordan SFDA, our colleagues, regarding salicylic acid. It is 2 to 18%. It's considered as a medical device. So, what is the class of this solution, salicylic acid solution, and what is the requirements? For example, CE or ISO for the company. What is the requirement? And I have a question for Dr. Monir Azzouzi, I think. Dr. Monir, regarding the ink tattoo, I think it is classified, as you said, as a medical device, or not? Ink tattoo is not classified as a medical device? Okay, so I misunderstand. Okay, thank you. So,
in the beginning, you were asking about salicylic acid concentration. From 2 to 8, it's classified as a medical device. It should be used for topical use, topical solution, okay? Topical solution from 2 to 8, it's a medical device. You should submit the requirement for medical device registration. The certificate is depends on its classification on country of origin. If it's classified as a medical device, you have to provide us with a CE certificate for quality assurance according to its classification. Or mostly this product is classified as a cosmetic product in their country of origin. So you have to provide us with free sale certificate, notarized or original certificate, and certificate for the manufacturing side, good manufacturing practice. Either it could be GMB or ISO for the cosmetics perspective quality assurance system.
Any more questions? Yes, Dr. Reham. Yes.
So good morning, everyone. This is Riham Habashi, Director of Regulatory Affairs for Bausch & Lomb. First of all, I would like to say thank you for the speakers for the very informative sessions. My question is to Dr. Noha regarding the scientific office role when it comes to the submission of the products. So for companies that do not have a legal entity in Egypt, however, they do have a scientific office under the umbrella of one of the distributors. So is it possible for this scientific office to apply for files for other products under the responsibility of other distributors? Because as you know, we might be having different distributors in Egypt responsible for different criteria of products, but the scientific office is under one of them. So how can we manage this to secure submissions for all the products that we have? Thank you.
I guess you mean the new case of having one scientific office and many legal manufacturers, right?
One scientific office, but different distributors in Egypt.
Okay.
So this distributor is responsible for the scientific office, one of them. Okay. So is it possible for the other distributors to, or for us to apply for the files through the scientific office that is under this specific distributor, or this scientific office should be only responsible for the products that this specific distributor is responsible for? Thank you.
Up till now, the main rule is one scientific office having, I have a problem, okay. One scientific office having one distributor. This is a normal case, like Johnson having its scientific office and one relation with one distributor that is allowed to import. A new regulation that had been adopted by EDA now, but it's not published, but I'm publishing it now, that one scientific office can register for more than legal manufacturer. And not only this, but you can have more than one distributor. Every time you have a new distributor, you have to submit its relationship with you and its permission for importation, and it will be as a case of variation, and it will be reported to us and added in the registration license.
مرحبا، أنا أمل من العراق. عندي سؤال أوجهه للأردن. في أوروبا ما بيعملوا فحص للكلاس 1 للفينش برودكت. وبالأردن أنتم من تعملوا الفحوصات بدكم ميثود أوف أنالايز. إذا الشركة ما عندها يعني شنو الحل؟
I did not get the question.
بأوروبا ما بيعملوا فحص للكلاس 1 للميديكال ديفايس، فحص يعني للفينش برودكت، وانتم بدكم يعني بالاردن للفحص ميثود اوف انالايز. فاذا الشركه ما عندها شنو العمل؟
هلا الشركه لو ما عندها they can develop method of analysis في مختبرات مرجعيه معتمده لدى المؤسسه العامه للغذاء والدواء في الاردن. هاي المشكله يعني هي يعني مع معظم الشركات، لأنهم يعني الأردن هي البلد الوحيد اللي بحلل، فممكن يكون في مواصفة في طرق تحليل، بس أنا بفترض إن هي الشركة once إنه هي عندها specification وعندها method of analysis، their method of analysis should be valid، يعني لازم تكون طريقة تحليلهم valid وبتطلع نتائج اللي طالعة في السيرتيفيكت في analysis اللي بعملوا لها submission مع التسجيل. but once إنه مثلا طلب منهم المشكلة اللي بتصير additional test for assay test if there is an active ingredient في الcomposition، يعني لو التركيبة فيها مادة فعالة وفي إلها claims نطلب إنه إضافة هذا الفحص للمواصفة النهائية. هلا لو الشركة ما قدرت إنها هي تأمنكم بطريقة التحليل، في عندنا شركات مصانع محلية وشركات محلية ومختبرات مرجعية معتمدة عند المؤسسة ممكن إنها تساعدهم to develop this method of analysis و submit it to GFDA.
Good morning. My name is Abdul Rahman and I'm a Regulatory Affairs Executive in MPC. My questions for Dr. Faisal. Is classification mandatory prior to starting registration process of a medical device? And regarding the point of providing history of similar products, this history, should it be previous models of from the same supplier, or can it be competitors from other suppliers? Then the next question for Dr. Noha. Every single sterile product require registration, including simple consumables like syringes and non-medicated dressing. Are there any medical devices granted direct clearance or just evaluated on importation level? Thank you.
Mr. Faisal?
So just to make sure I get the question right, your first question was about the classification. It should be submitted at the beginning of the application.
For submission of the TFE.
Yeah. One of the sections, as I mentioned, is built on classification. So the whole technical file, when you start assembling the technical data to be included in the application, will be based on your classification of that device. So it's a good practice that before submitting your application or starting to get your data, to know the class of your device. That will make your life easier. You know which documents you need to start looking for, because you may spend a lot of effort in the wrong direction because that was the wrong classification. And keep in mind, some countries will or country of origin will classify it in certain class, but when you follow the SFDA scheme, it might be classed in a different way. It will be higher or lower depending on what documents will be provided and what information. We don't usually go beyond the manufacturer classification, but we need to reassure that yes, it was classified in the correct way, especially for innovative products or new technologies, whether if there are products which have similar, and that I think your second question, if there is an equivalent in the market, that will be very easy. We'll just double check the variations between, is it the same family, same functionality, is it the same manufacturer or a different manufacturer? Raw materials play a big role in this decision. So all of these will be considered when I talk about similarities or equivalence. There are several factors. It's easy to say A is B, they are together, they are similar, they do the same function. But in reality, when you start digging a little bit deeper, you will find out that no, it's different material, different technology, different even way of manufacturing. Yet they do the same function, but it's in a complete different platforms. I hope this answers your question.
So just to rephrase or to repeat what you said, it's advisable but not mandatory. And the country of origin classification is not a 100% reliable source.
Yes.
It, of course, helps the reviewer to assess or to evaluate the product, but it's not, let's say, blindly followed or...
Yes, it's true.
Okay. Second part of the question, which I would like you to repeat it again. It was about...
equivalent.
Just the second part, the second question was submitting a history of similar products in KSA market. Should it be previous models supplied by the same company, or it can be competitors from other companies?
As I mentioned, it's an open document. You can submit the documents that either from the same manufacturer or equivalent device from other providers. But this requirement is not a major requirement. So it's a supporting document that can be submitted to the application, but it's not required. Unless it's a new technology or a novel technology, then we are trying to see, because there is a novel technology, you don't have any other in the market. So you try to say, this was the latest in that time, and this technology proceed or exceeded in this area. But sometimes in crisis, for example, like what happened during COVID time, this particular requirement became very important because the duration of the review time, you cannot spend 35 days to review the application. There is an urgent need in the market. You need to go with it. So what we will do is we will try to find an equivalent product, and we try to see if it's still doing the same function, and we review certain major parts concerning with the validation and the verification of the performance of that IVD kit, for example. And if there is an equivalent device, we use those data, this data to generate a marketing authorization. And after the crisis is done, there will be a full assessment of the whole product that's been placed in the market. So yes, it depends on the situation. It's important in some times, and it's not important in other times.
Okay. The next question is for Dr. Noha.
There was a question about registration in one registration license. As I mentioned in my presentation, for registering your product in one registration license, you have to be common in the 5 aspects that I mentioned: trade name, manufacturer, raw material, intended use, and whatever. So if you have the 5 aspects the same, you can register your products in the same registration license. So if you are asking about syringe, you can register a syringe, but with its sizes, syringe 3 and 5 and 10 milli, these all are in one registration license. Otherwise, if you have any difference, it will be separated. Another thing that we have also is the registration by the bundling criteria, but it's only applied on the non-sterile medical devices like endoscopes and cochlear implants and whatever, because we know it has a lot of models, so we try to make it easier for the applicant, and we made the bundling criteria, which is more flexible than registration with the 5 aspects in the sterile.
I have a question that I just received. The VAT. In UAE, there's a practice or a rule, which I don't know about, where some certain medical devices are exempted from the VAT. Is this the case in Saudi, Egypt, and Jordan? I know in Jordan we had a discussion, it was how many percent, 15%, or there was a debate over what amount of percentage is the VAT in Jordan. So are there is there any criteria of medical devices or equipment or life-saving medical devices that are exempted from the VAT?
هذه الإعفاءات الجمركية الإعفاءات الجمركية هاي الإعفاءات الجمركية يعني دائرة الجمارك هي دائرة منفصلة عن المؤسسة العامة للغذاء والدواء، يعني هاي دائرة مختلفة، هي بيكون الفانكشن تبعها والإعفاءات والهاي يعني احنا we are not يعني involved in this process.
Look. You might not be involved in this, but you might be understanding the regulation because people are asking if the medical devices are under the VAT control rather than the general VAT. لما بيجي end user, do we have to put this 5%? Because according to the regulation, again, the FDA, not the Ministry of Health, they say that it needs a 5%, especially if you are using it for cosmetics or any other non-medicated. And since we are talking about aesthetic and medical device, I think
هلا احنا الهوت توبيك في الموضوع الضريبه، في عنا ضريبه 4% و16%. الادويه واي شيء امبلانتبل ضريبتهم 4%، هذول بتكون ضريبه عليهم 4%، بالتالي بيدخلوا في التامين الصحي. 16% هي بتكون الميديكال ديفايسز والهيربال والفيتامين. ف this is for insurance، هي اللي بيستفيدوا من ضريبه ال 4% انه بيدخل في التامين. هلا هي بتكون للادويه وللمستلزمات الطبيه الامبلانتبل تزرع داخل الجسم. هلا موضوع ال4 وال16 احنا بنحاول يعني ديلينج مع الجمارك لتوحيد بند التعرفه والضريبه. هلا في عندنا قطرات بيكون مثلا ضريبتها 4% وفي اشياء 16% بناء على التريتد كليم. هلا حاليا في عندنا جوينت كوميشن مع الجمارك عشان نوحد هاي الضريبه. هلا احنا من مصلحتنا انها تكون ضريبه 4% لحتى يكون كل مواطن اردني قادر انه يحصل على هاي الميديكال ديفايس والميديكال سبلاي بتكون داخله ضمن مظله التامين الصحي. فيعني هي لسه yes to unify that.
The thing is, Saudi Arabia, we have 15% VAT on all goods, except for pharmaceutical and medical products, which are exempted from the VAT. And this is in daily cooperation with the Authority of Customs. We have a joint committee which updates and review all the products on the list. Now, for let's say a manufacturer, they want to ship they get already the clearance and everything with them. They have the marketing authorization for the registration. It's time to ship the devices to the Saudi market. They have to enter the customs website. There are certain codes. Once they click on that code, there is a description. Next to it, it will show is it exempted or not.
The HS code.
Yeah, HS code, yes. So it will show is it exempted or not. And this list is updated regularly based on the evaluation and the technical. Some products are today, we'll say it's a medical device. Tomorrow, for some scientific reasons, it will be out of that list. So it will be back to the 15% VAT.
Dr. Monir, since this is in UAE happening or under discussion, what is the scope of the products?
بصي احنا في مصر يعني مش فارم قوي عن الأردن يعني ستيل نفس الكيس. يس الميديكال ديفايسز هي بتطبق عليها ال 5%. والجمارك برضو ستيل بيطلبوا الاتش اس كود. بس احنا يعني الكلام ده كان مثلا لسه قريب من شهر ابتدينا نتكلم معاهم ان عايزين نعمل اعفاء جمركي للميديكال ديفايس زيه زي الادويه علشان يعني بنفهمهم ده حاجه برضو لايف سيفنج. ف it's still gray area ان هو فعلا بنحاول ان احنا نوفق الاوضاع ان لا ما تخضعش للجمرك ويبقى ليها اعفاء. بس لسه مفيش قرار طبعا واضح لحد دلوقتي.